Amen. Amen. We'll have a seat. It's great to see y'all. I missed you last week. In case we haven't met yet, my name is David. I'm the lead pastor here at Neighborhood. Really excited that you have chosen to join us for your Sunday morning to worship Jesus the King with us. If you are new to Neighborhood, I just want to say a special hello to you. I would love to meet you out in the lobby after service at the pink sign, just like this pink card. You probably noticed when you came and made your way to your seat, there's a white info card there. We'd love for you to fill that out just so that we can keep in touch and bring that to the pink sign after service. We would love to say hello. We'll send you an email this week to help you grow in your faith, and we've got a Bible there if you need one as well, and we'd just love to bless you with those things. Here at Neighborhood Church, we exist to lead our neighbors to life-changing relationships with Jesus. And so I want to tell you about a couple of ways that you can jump right on in with both feet and do that. So the first is child dedications next week. Victoria and I are really excited that we're going to dedicate Ren. If you are interested, have a child of any age that you would like to participate in child dedications, you can text this number on the screen. Now, I want to let you know about this number because we've put it up on a slide a few times now, and I realize that we haven't said anything about it. This is not like a weird scam that's going to steal your information, and now that I've said that, I realize that's the only thing you're going to think it is. This is Neighborhood Church's texting phone number, so you can text this number with questions, prayer requests, anything that you would like, and we use this number as well to send out information on events and things that are coming up for you as well. So that is our number. Child dedications, I'll say this too, a little bit of a misnomer, to be honest with you. Really what we're doing is dedicating ourselves. Yes, we're dedicating a child to the Lord and saying, God, you have blessed us and entrusted us with this child. We're also saying, God, we are dedicating ourselves to raise up this child in the Lord. And it takes a church to raise a child. So we dedicate children and we dedicate ourselves together. So that will be next week, really special family service. Kids are going to be in here with us. It's going to be a blast. If you're a parent, don't worry. We know kids get a little rowdy. That's what makes it fun. So it'll be great. Coming up on March 24th, 2 weeks from today, after service, stick around with us. We are going to pack some goodie bags and gift bags for the teachers and staff here at Advantage Arts Academy. We just want to be a blessing to them, and we don't want to just be in the school. We want to be here for the school, and one way that we want to show that is just by packing gift bags so that after spring break, they can come back and every teacher will have a gift bag from Neighborhood Church on their desk. So we'd love for you to stick around after service, March 24th. We'll pray over those bags on Easter Sunday, and then we'll get to leave them for the teachers. Speaking of Easter Sunday, Easter week is coming up on March 29th. That is Good Friday. So we're going to be here right out in the lobby. We're going to do kind of a potluck taco-style dinner with more information to come on that. We are going to provide the meat for the tacos, and we'll have a sign-up. So keep your eyes out for that, where you can sign up to bring different side dishes and desserts and things, all the taco accoutrements. And so it's going to be a really, really sweet time together, remembering the sacrifice Jesus made for us and enjoying a meal together. And then Easter Sunday, March 31st, we'll have our normal service time here at 10 a.m. On your seats, you probably noticed not one of these little Easter invitation cards, but three. There's a reason for that. Now, I want to challenge you this morning to take all three of those and give them away. Invite friends, neighbors, coworkers, family to celebrate Easter, to hear about our risen Savior King with us on Easter Sunday. If you need more than three, we've got plenty. Trust me, there's a whole bunch more out at the welcome table by the pink sign. If you've got, kids in swimming lessons or karate lessons or whatever, lots of times there's those community bulletin boards. You can take a stack and clip them up there. And we just want as many people as possible to hear about Jesus, to hear the truth, the good news of who Jesus is and what he's done for us. So I think every one of us in this room, this is the challenge. I think every one of us could take three of these and give them away in the next 3 weeks. And when you come in next week, there's probably going to be a couple more on your chair. And the challenge is to give away as many as possible. I know that it can be feel awkward. It can feel nerve-wracking. There can be some nerves involved. But my encouragement is to take them and hand them out and just see what the Lord does with that when we're faithful to what he's called us to do, to invite people into his story, into his redemption that he has won for us. So in a moment, we're going to have a very special message. And before we get there, I'd love for you to pray with me. God, we praise you because you're good to us, because you are our Savior, because you love the world so much, God, that you sent your Son, and Jesus, that you came for us, to be with us, to know us, to understand us, to know what it's like to be us. And Jesus, you faced everything that we could face. Every temptation that we face, you faced it. Every challenge, every struggle, every time of feeling vulnerable or open, you have faced it. You understand. And so, Lord, that's one of the themes that we're going to be talking about this morning is orphans and vulnerable children and what we can do about it, what you have invited us into as your followers. And so, Lord, I pray that you would challenge our hearts right now, speak to us. I pray that you would drive away all fear from us, that we would be ready and willing to jump in with both feet to the ministry of reconciliation that you've given to us, that you've said is our identity. You say that we are your ambassadors of your kingdom here on earth. So, Lord, we lift up your name. We praise you this morning, and we ask you to come and speak to each one of us. And we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. So, Amy, come on up. Amy King is going to come up now, and Amy is the director of Promise 686 Utah. If you remember back in our super fun 23 and We video at the end of 2023, I said we had a couple of strategic mission partnerships coming up that we're going to launch this year in 2024. And here's one of them that we're really excited about. And so Amy has been kind enough to come and share with us about what she does this morning, and not what she does this morning, but to share with us this morning what she does. A little grammar nerd insight for you. And I'm just really excited to have her here and be able to kick off this partnership. And we'll tell you all about what that looks like. And it's going to be a special Sunday. I'm really excited for the next 30 minutes or so. Yeah. So, Amy, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. Am I on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Super excited.
Thanks for joining us.
Here. Yeah.
So Amy, I know a little bit about you.
Yeah.
I know you're from Michigan.
Yep.
Which makes me sad inside a little bit, being in Pennsylvania.
Are you Michigan? Yay. Lower.
Oh, man.
Just north of Detroit.
Well, we are Penn State here, so it's all right.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's all good. It's all good. We've had a tough year as Pennsylvania sports fans. But, Amy, tell us a little bit more about you, and tell us what you do.
Yeah, so as David said, I'm from Michigan, born and raised, went to school and college there, and then I actually moved out to Utah in 2003 as a part of a church plant. So there was about 30 of us that moved from a church to start a church out here. And so that's how I ended up in Utah. Was never in the plans to move to Utah. I don't think I even knew where Utah was on the map. I'm like, is Nevada, like looking around there. But anyways, I was on staff at our church. I did a lot of the Sunday production stuff. But God had really, in the early 2000s, had really been moving my heart for orphans. It just kind of came on, and I started reading articles about how many orphans there were in the world, and being really overwhelmed because at that time there was 147 million orphans in the world. Today it's up to 160 million. And so when you read statistics like that, you're like, oh, I can't make a difference. They're kind of defeating. And so I didn't really do anything for a long time. But God kind of kept pressing my heart on it, and specifically for the country of Russia. I have no idea why. I was reading a lot of articles about orphans in Eastern Europe, and so, just had this crazy heart, but didn't know what to do. And finally, I met with a guy who did ministry in Russia, and he's like, well, I'm taking a trip over to Russia to kind of show people what we do over there in the orphanages. Would you want to come? And I'm like, yes. I was kind of looking for like a direction and just not feeling anything, and I felt like God put that out. So in the fall of 2005, I spent 2 weeks in Russia and we just went from one orphanage to the next, and my heart was just destroyed. You stand in these cold institutions, and you're like, really, this really still exists in 2005? Like, it's just, unbelievable. And every orphanage that I would go to, and spend time with the kids, I felt like God would always kind of give me this moment where I would look at a kid and I would think, that could have been me. And I don't know why that wasn't me. I don't know why I was born here and they were born there, and I have a family and they don't have a family. But if that was me, how badly would I want somebody to be a voice for me? And also, or if that was my child, and for some reason I couldn't take care of my child, how badly would I want somebody else to be able to step in and care for them? And so when I came back from that trip, I just I just became a voice and started sharing with people what I had experienced and what I had seen. And my church got involved, and we started doing ministry over there with 2 of the orphanages that I had visited. And actually 4 of it wasn't part of the plan, but 4 of the kids in one of the orphanages ended up being adopted by families at my church. And so it was kind of this turnaround moment where, like, yeah, I can't save 163 million orphans, but I can help, the ones that were right in front of me. And so we got involved with that. So great. But then God really turned my heart also to the orphans that we have, because people started asking me, do we have orphanages in the United States? And I would say, well, not in the typical sense. We do have some like group homes, but we have foster care, when kids have to be removed from their home because of abuse or neglect, then they go into foster families, and that's kind of our orphanage system. And God really turned. I have a heart for a child anywhere in the world, and Russia still holds an incredibly special part in my heart. But God really turned my focus to the United States and delving into that. And I was at a conference. What really sealed it, that I think I'm really supposed to focus on this, and I'm supposed to actually start a ministry around this, is I was at a conference, and there was a pastor that was speaking from Colorado, and he knew nothing about foster care, but he had found out, I think through reading an article, that at that time, and this is like mid-2000s also, that there were like 800 kids in the state of Colorado that didn't have a home. So they had gone into foster care, parental rights had been terminated, and they needed a home. And he had no idea about this, and he's like, holy cow, these are like kids right in our backyard. Our church should be doing something about this, but he didn't know what to do, so he made an appointment with someone at the state and went in and said, hey, I'm Pastor so-and-so, I'm from this church. I just found out that there's 800 kids that need homes. We want to do something to help. What can we do? And the guy looked at him and he kind of paused and he was like, that's amazing. And then he paused again. He was like, I didn't know that the church even cared. And hearing that was such a, dagger in my heart, and just thinking, like, this is our calling, as I'll be sharing about. This is our calling, and the perception from the state is that we don't even care. And the foster care system gets a bad rap a lot. It's a very broken system. But I always say, you know what, it was our job as believers and as the church to care for kids, and we relinquished that to the state, and they're just doing the best job that they can. Yeah. So I just, after hearing him speak, I just felt like I'm supposed to start some type of a ministry that would help churches become involved in this area. And not just, yes, we need families who can foster and adopt, but there's also so many other support roles that people can play. And I know people want to help, but they just don't know how. So a big part of what I wanted to do was to be able to help churches connect with ways to serve in their own community. So I started, it was called For the Orphan Network in 2013. So we just turned 10 years old. And when we turned 10 years old, we decided to become a nonprofit because we're growing, and we just want to be able to grow more. We're serving in the Salt Lake Valley, but we want to be able to go statewide. And so we actually became a nonprofit called Promise 686. And the 686 comes from Psalm 68:6, which says, God sets the lonely in families. And he definitely sets kiddos who need families into families, but there's also just families that are lonely and need help. So it really encompasses serving a pretty large group of people. And, the term orphan, a lot of times when you hear it, you just think of the kid in Russia, or the kid in Africa, the kid whose both parents have died. Worldwide, most of the kids actually that live in orphanages have at least one living parent, but they can't afford to care for them, so they end up in an orphanage. And in the Bible, the word orphan in Hebrew just means a child that's kind of like lacking provision and protection. So it really encompasses a whole wide range of kids. So, yeah.
What a reminder. I mean, having heard some of your story before, I began to feel, and I'm sure now we all hearing your story are beginning to feel this weight and that reminder of that could have been me. Mm-hmm. And how much God has blessed us, simply to be born and to live where we live, and yet he also invites us to be a part of the grace that he wants to show to those who are less fortunate than us.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And I just love all of everything that's baked into that and behind it, and it's funny because I think, let's see, it was a few months ago now, but I was closing out a message, and for the first time here at Neighborhood said, we want to see the lonely set in families. That's what we want to be about. I think that's what God is leading us into. And it was that week that I went to the luncheon that you hosted, and I found out that Promise 686 stands for Psalm 68:6. God sets the lonely in families. And it was like that moment, like, okay, well, here's one of our partnerships that's coming. God is definitely leading us into this. And I love what you're doing here in Utah, because we are, just as followers of Jesus in general, I think so often, and I am all for overseas missions, every corner and every last people of the world. Yep. And yet, the question that haunts me is, what about the mission field in the backyard? What about the mission field next door and across the street? And so I love that this is like right here, right now, real, tangible needs that are happening. And so absolutely, I think we feel the weight of that. But then the question becomes, where do we go with that? What do we do with that? And so if we take that question from the beginning, it starts with the call, right? So tell us a little bit more, as we really begin to feel this weight. Okay, what does God call us into and invite us into when it comes to orphans and vulnerable children?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's one thing to, you hear stories, and of course kids need help, and lots of people adopt or foster who aren't believers, and so kind of like what makes it kind of different than when we're doing it. And really, all throughout Scripture, God talks about the orphan. He talks about the widow and the orphan. He talks about the fatherless. He calls himself, one of his names is that I'm a father to the fatherless. Isaiah talks about taking up the cause of the fatherless. And so, it's always been a part of our identity. And even in the early church in ancient Roman times, people who had a baby and they didn't want it because maybe it was the wrong gender, or it had a deformity, or it was just an inconvenience to their life, would bring the babies outside of the walls of the city and just leave them there for, the sun and the animals and whatever to take care of. And it was the Christians, the early believers, that would come outside those city gates, and they were the minorities and often, really persecuted during that time, and they were the ones that would come out and take these children in. And so it's baked into our identity. And even, there's just... it's just part of who we are, and we know that God adopted us, and he came for us in our brokenness. And if we're supposed to be imitators of Jesus, then that means we go after the orphan, the widow, the lonely, the broken here. And if it's not enough for that, it's actually a command, or it's a kind of a mandate. So James 1:27 is one of my favorite verses. We can show that. It says, "Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world." And so I look at that and I'm like, okay, if I read through the Bible and I get to this part, and the person who's writing's like, okay, get ready, I'm going to tell you what true religion is. And you're like, okay.
And so often we're like, okay, skip that part.
Yeah, it's not going to church. Although that's good. It's not tithing that's good or whatever. Jesus says true religion is to care for orphans and widows. And two, so much of our what we do is around orphans and kiddos in foster care, but widows obviously a part of that, and we have obviously widows all over too in our congregations and serving them also. But I also believe that kind of the modern day widow is the single mom too, that is overlooked a lot. So that's kind of just the history of who we are as believers and our call from Scripture. I always tell people, you don't have to pray about whether you're supposed to be involved in this. Everyone's supposed to be involved in this, right? It's just figuring out what is your role, what has God called you to do.
Yeah. So in helping us understand, what this looks like here, even close to home, for someone who doesn't understand how the child welfare system works, can you tell us how do children end up in foster care?
Sure. Yeah. The word foster care, you kind of hear it and you're like, oh, or the stories that you see on the news are always bad stories or whatever, and there's a lot of misconceptions too. And so I always just like to share a little bit about the system. So kids go into care through no fault of their own. They go into care because their parents or their caregiver that they're living with, there is abuse or neglect in that home. And so anytime that somebody is worried about a child, teachers are actually the number one reporter of suspected child abuse or neglect because they're seeing, their kids on a daily basis. So anytime somebody's concerned, maybe it's a neighbor or whatever, they'll make a call into a number for the Department of Child and Family Services, and they have a certain amount of time to go out and kind of investigate what's going on. And a lot of times it's not intentional. There's no abuse and it's not intentional neglect, but it was what I would call neglect out of poverty. So maybe kids are sleeping on the floor, they don't have a bed, or they're riding in the car without car seats. And so if it's kind of one of those situations, then the caseworker's job is to kind of help them find resources in the community that can help strengthen them as a family so that the kids don't end up going into foster care. But then there are the kiddos that do need to be removed, and they are placed into licensed foster homes. And then their family, mom and dad, whoever it is, has usually a year to be able to do the different things that the state asks of them to be able to receive their child back. So a lot of times they need to go to rehab because they're dealing with a drug or alcohol situation. They might need to go to parenting classes. So they go into care and they start their journey with trying to get their kiddo back. And about, I don't know with the exact statistic, I think it's about 65% nationally, 65-70% get to go back home, which is a good thing, because that really is the point of foster care, is we just, we want kiddos to experience a good family, to be in a good family in the hopes that their biological family is going to be able to get them back. But again, that doesn't always happen either. So at the end of that year or however long the judge has decided to give them, along the way there's kind of progress reports and they have to go into court and things like that. At some point the judge will say, okay, these kids can return home, or we're going to have to terminate parental rights. And so when that happens, legally parental rights are terminated, and that child or children are now legally available for adoption. And usually the hope is that whatever foster home they're in will adopt them, but that doesn't always happen too. So we have a lot of kids who end up what we call aging out of foster care, when they're 18, never having received a family. And just, again, statistics can kind of be overwhelming and not super motivating, but I do like to share some. So if we can show the next slide. Okay, let's backtrack for a second. You're talking about our theological call. I just loved this. This says, if the incarnation of Jesus is at the heart of the gospel, then our stepping towards the hard and broken is certainly at the core of our calling to care for vulnerable children. So that's why we're here, and that's why we're learning about this. So yeah, let's go to the next slide. So at any one time in the United States, there's 400,000 kids that are in foster care. The Department of Child and Family Services receives about 7 million calls a year of suspected abuse or neglect. And again, those don't always turn into cases that are opened and followed, but that's the number that's happening. And again, for those kiddos who go into foster care and their parental rights are terminated, we have about 120,000 of those kids right now in the United States who are waiting for a home, who don't have a home. And then again, if they don't receive a home, about 20,000 of those kids age out at 18, and they're on their own. And statistics are not great for them, which we'll share in a minute. But and then bringing it just to Utah, we can go to the next slide. In Utah, we have about 2,000 kids that are in foster care at any one time, about 250 that are legally available for adoption. And about 120 of those kids will age out every year. And again, the statistics for those kids, we can jump to the next slide, are not that great. If you can see, 70% end up pregnant, 60% in trafficking, 20% instantly become homeless, less than 3% will earn a college degree, 25% of those will be incarcerated within 2 years. And then really interesting, the 25% are dealing with PTSD. That's actually, we know that kids who have gone into foster care experience PTSD at twice the rate of combat veterans. And so, yeah, it's just a huge problem. It's interesting because you look at, we as the church, a lot of times we want to be involved in homeless ministry, right? And we want to be involved in anti-trafficking and things like that. And I will say, well, get involved in the foster care system because it is ground zero for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think as we hear that and we see the statistics and you're spot on, we think of homeless ministry often. And it's like, well, what about, it's just like in healthcare, right? Preventive care, we're supposed to go to the doctor every year. Can we do something on the front end to catch things early and prevent bad things from happening? And so it begs the question, what can we do and how can we get involved? And I think as we consider that question, we have to keep the incarnation of Jesus in mind. And we have to be willing to practice the incarnation of Jesus. And what I mean is to be a representative of Jesus to the needy and the most vulnerable. And there are lots of different ways that we can do that. And they range all the way from, becoming foster parents and foster families to adopting to mentoring kids and helping foster families and all the way to prayer. And I don't want to minimize prayer. Prayer is important. Everything we do begins with prayer. And yet, my strong recommendation to you is to start with prayer, but don't let it stop there. Because we may think, oh, well, I don't have the means, I don't have the resources to be a foster parent or an adoptive family. And that may be true, but who knows what the Lord might do when we begin to ask Him for opportunities to serve and to show the incarnate Jesus to people. And I'll say this too, maybe you're just thinking, well, fostering, adopting, all this stuff, that just sounds crazy. Well, some of y'all have heard me say this before. I'm going to say it again. When we are following Jesus, crazy is normal and normal is crazy. What Jesus did for us, the world looks at it and says, that's crazy. Why would a perfect person give his life for a bunch of mess-ups? But when we're following Jesus, when we know the good news, we're called to a life that looks crazy, that is not conformed to what the world does and what the world looks like. And because of that radical grace he's shown us, to live a normal life that looks like the rest of the world, let's be honest with ourselves, that's crazy. We know something much, much better, much greater, much deeper. And so to live a normal life that looks like people who don't know that would be crazy. And so this is what our hope is, and our prayer is that some of us in this room would become foster families and foster parents. Some of us would become adoptive families. And those of us who don't would rally around those families and help and serve. And with all of the things that Amy has told me about before that were not even on my radar, like court dates and appointments and medical appointments and therapy appointments and things just like all over the city and probably the state even, and just supporting and babysitting. And there's all kinds of ways, even if we can't all be foster families and adoptive families, we can all be involved. There's something that every one of us could do. And that's what's so exciting about this opportunity, is that we can all be involved. And now some of those things are a bit down the road, but we need to start with prayer now. The other thing that we're starting with is to receive some tangible needs, some requests that are right here in our community, either with families that are struggling to stay together, families that are reunifying after some time apart, and they have tangible needs. They have things that they need. Kids need beds to sleep in, or they need a kitchen table and chairs to be able to have dinner together. And a platform that is going to help us a lot with that is CarePortal. So I'm going to have Yvonne come up now. Yvonne is going to be our advocate. Yeah, she knew she was coming. She didn't know when, and I didn't give a good cue, but she's coming. So Yvonne is going to be our advocate. And what that means is she kind of is the one who will oversee and receive the requests that come in and field them, and then help get the word out to neighborhood that, hey, there's a request that's come in. We want to meet this because there's families with needs. Come on up here on the stage. There's steps up there. You can come up. I know she doesn't. She doesn't love
this
to
wasn't
be
in the
up
plan.
here, but it's all right. But I wanted to introduce Yvonne to you because Yvonne, as our advocate, is our primary point of contact. Yvonne and Amy are going to work closely together, and we're gonna sort this out, and we're gonna become a church that meets real needs.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of.
Is it okay to share, for me to share about? Okay, well,
yeah.
The amazing thing about is
she's like, what are you going to share?
And she's going to need to. I think I'm going to tell you. She needs to share her whole story sometime.
Okay, yeah.
But Yvonne was in foster care, and so just puts a face with you just heard about a crisis and you saw numbers, but now you see not only a face but one of your own who experienced foster care. So I think it's just really, really special to have you championing this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's who we are. It's what God does. That He takes the most broken situations and He redeems them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so as I tear up, Amy, why don't you tell us what CarePortal looks like and how it works and how it'll play out for us. And Yvonne, you can you can hang out. You can have this if you want.
Or you can feel free to sit down if you want. Yes, please go. Yes. So CarePortal is just a platform, an online platform that was created by an organization called the Global Orphan Project. They were doing a bunch of stuff overseas, and they were kind of like, hey, we should be actually caring for the kids in our own backyard. And what would it look like to find a way that everybody can be involved, from 5 to 95, and everything in between. And so they created this platform called CarePortal, and when they come into a state, an organization implements it. So Promise 686 is the implementer of it here in Utah. And then we work with the Department of Child Family Services and then other organizations too. So Utah Youth Village, we're going to start working with the Crisis Pregnancy Center. And their caseworkers can enter in tangible needs that the families that they serve have. So like I was sharing, when a caseworker goes out to a call about, someone's worried about a child and they're like, this isn't intentional, there's no abuse and it's not intentional neglect, but a kid is sleeping on the floor or whatever. And I said, it's their job to help the family find resources. We're one of those resources. So they can enter in that they have a family, that needs a bed and a car seat. Beds are our number one requests. So it's really to help strengthen families and let's be on that end of keeping families together. But it can also be used for entering in needs for families that are fostering, families that are adopting, and then also a big one is those families that are reuniting that you kind of talked about, where a kiddo went into foster care and mom and dad did the work that they needed to do to bring the child back into their home, but they have specific needs for the child to even be able to come home. A lot of times they'll do a trial visit, they'll come for a weekend or things like that. But a lot of these families and a lot of the moms, they are starting completely over. And so it might be one of those things where they have literally just scraped together enough money to get an apartment, but they don't have any beds or anything. And so we can come in and serve that way. And so it's just an amazing thing. And the great thing is that you guys, if you want to, get to deliver the needs to the families. Which it's a huge thing. So many of these families just need a positive connection. And sometimes it's just a one-off thing. You deliver it, you talk for a few seconds. But the hope is that some of these might turn into relationships. And you'll continue to check on them, find out how they're doing. And so I'm going to share a story in a minute of when that happened for me, actually. But this is even just a picture of my church. We took, so sitting on the bed, you can see a dad. He's bald and he has a little girl. So his daughter, he's a single dad. His daughter had gone into foster care and he got them back. But he was one of those situations too, where he had an apartment, but he literally didn't have anything. And so the request went out to my church. And then the cool thing was there was a family that was moving and literally getting rid of everything. And they're like, hey, you can have all of our furniture. So this was really cool. This is a small group, a men's small group, who decided, hey, we're gonna make the delivery. And even I love this because it's kind of that, whatever you do in life, there's a way for you to serve. I love this. So a guy, you can see it's a FedEx truck. So a guy worked for FedEx. He's like, I can bring my truck to help, So they came and they just loaded up this truck and then went over and set up beds. This girl had never had a bed before and just had a great time. His name's Mario, and have continued to stay in contact with him. Mario has shown up a few times at my church, awesome. Which has been a really neat blessing too.
Can you tell us about, I love that story that your Mario showed up at church.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about the relational aspect of the deliveries? Because I know that's something that's really important to using the CarePortal platform.
Yeah, it's kind of, like I said, so many of these families don't have a positive relationship. And so to just have one person can literally make a difference. I know with the Rock Church, who is a part of this also, they took a need one time for a girl who was working on getting her kids back. And so she was going to do those trial visits and needed a bed and things like that. But then also the people who made the delivery to her found out that she literally didn't have anybody to even when she had to go into court to go with her. And so they're like, we'll go with you. And so these two ladies who had made the delivery, would find out when they had a court date and go with her and just be a support system. And so many of these moms, they love their kids and they're doing the best they can. And the system can, when you're in it, can feel like, if you're a parent and you've had your kids removed and you're trying to get them back, it can feel like everyone's against you, right? Yeah. And it is really hard. You'll hear from the story we're going to share about. It's hard to do the things that you need to do to get your kids back, because you have to go to therapy and you have to go to this and you have to go to that, and sometimes it's not a convenient where it's located. You don't get to choose, and maybe you don't have a car and you have a job, and it's just it's really, really difficult. So for that situation to have somebody come over or meet them at the court and just be there with them, think about that if you were that mom, just what a blessing that would be. And she was able to get her daughter back, and they had a little party for her too whenever they did that. And so they've been able to kind of stay involved in that way. And again, like I said, sometimes it's just a one-time thing. Sometimes, maybe when you make a delivery, people don't seem grateful, but what I've kind of learned is that a lot of times people are embarrassed that they need help, or they've never been given anything and they don't even know how to react about it. You'll hear that actually in this next story I wanted to share. So this is actually a story of a mom who was in the process of getting her daughter back. We had just launched CarePortal. And so I actually was the one who made the delivery because I was the only one who knew about it. And again, it just kind of shares a little bit about what she had to do to get her kids back, but also kind of the relationship that we have formed over the years. So we'll go ahead and show it. Oh, we'll go back to that one.
A little bit about my life growing up. I was kind of a rebel. My mom was very dominant. So I started acting out at about 14, started doing drugs at 16, got pregnant at 17, had a baby by pretty much 18. I got clean, graduated high school, and then my son was about 6 months old and I relapsed again. And then it was just an ongoing battle from there. My middle son was removed when he was 4. And then I was sober for, right after I had Abby in 2015. I was sober for quite some time. And then I lost my parents. I ended up relapsing. Abby was probably 2 or 3. That was when she got taken from me. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever had to go through, even harder than both my parents dying. That type of heartache is nothing I would ever want anyone to go through. At first it seems impossible to drug test however many times you're required, to go to treatment and hold a job at the same time and try and, especially without a car, that was fun. I had to take the bus down for visits. You only get like an hour visit once a week. And I feel like that was the hardest thing I ever had to go through, was the 1 hour visits. In order for a home trial placement to even be considered, you have to have a job and income, but you also have to have a separate place for sleeping. So in order for Abby to come home, I would have to provide a bed for myself and then a separate bed for her. I had a separate bed for her, just not for myself. I was already, getting back up on my feet, let alone having extra money after rent and food to be able to go and buy pretty much all the things that I needed for her to come home. So I reached out to my DCFS caseworker, and she reached out to, I didn't know who it was at the time, but she reached out to Amy, and that is how I got a bed, and then it was set in stone for her to come home. I felt like it was one less stress, multiple stresses lifted off my shoulder.
So my name is Abby and I am 7.
When Abby came home, we didn't have a kitchen table. And I mean, we made fun out of it, but we had to eat on the kitchen floor, and she had to paint on the kitchen floor.
It felt really nice for someone to bring us a table and like a bed.
When we got that kitchen table, she was at it every day, whether it was doing homework or meals.
It was really exciting because I wanted to paint.
I think that table was one of the best things. When Abby came home, it was actually 3 years ago that I got the bed, and ever since then, a relationship has been formed. And I feel like sometimes I'm stressing about how I'm gonna get my kids clothes, and Amy is there. Like, to have someone just be willing to give and want nothing in return, that's a rarity in my life. And I don't have to worry about feeling like a crappy parent, because I know there's help out there.
So that's just one story out of many. And again, that doesn't always happen, to be able to stay in touch, but I have stayed in touch with her, and like she said, like the request might be for one thing, but when you go there, and if you start a relationship, you're always welcome to ask, if there's certain things that they need. So even in this case, like I have a friend who has a little girl who's a few years older than her and gives me all of her hand-me-downs. They're like from Nordstrom's and Macy's and stuff like that, and so I'm always taking a load of clothes over for Abby, so clothes are never, a thing. And what's interesting too, you heard Audrey, the mom, say at the very end that, getting something from somebody without them wanting something in return is a rarity in her life. And again, I went back to sharing about sometimes when you make a delivery, people don't know how to handle it because they're expecting, well, now what do you want back type of thing. So when we go, it's just we're there to love and serve, on that doorstep. And sometimes they invite you in and tell you their whole story, and you get the blessing to be a part of something like this. I always joke, I'm like, I feel sorry for people who don't get a chance to do stuff like this, because it's just, God tells us, like, we find our life when we give it away. Yeah. And so much of this type of work is messy. You might walk into, you're walking into broken homes and broken families, and it doesn't look clean and nice, and you never know what's going on. But again, that's what Jesus came to walk into, right? He came to walk into the broken and the messy. And I always tell people too, when you make a delivery, you know that person's story, but all I know is that when I show up in that doorstep, I'm in need of Jesus as much as the person across from me is in need of Jesus, and our needs are just different. Yep. So that's something this is something that you guys are launching today.
Yes,
CarePortal.
we are.
And I'll go back to the slide before, or the slide that was after, that had the together. Yeah. So just in the past couple years, these are the churches, and we're adding you guys onto that today. So these are the churches in the valley that have served, and so we've been able to serve 235 families that represent 455 kids. And we want to be able to, over the years as we grow, change those hundreds, serving hundreds of kids and families to thousands.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Very
and
cool.
we actually have a need for you guys.
We do. We do. So there's a slide for that.
Right out of the gate.
McKay.
This is how when a need goes out, this is kind of what it looks like. It'll give a little bit of a story. It'll tell the reason why. If it's for a family that's fostering or a family that's reunifying, this is to help reunify a biological family. They've actually already been reunified, but they do have some needs, and it then just tells us a little bit of story. So this is a mom who, there they are. We don't usually have pictures. This is a rarity, but actually friends of mine were the foster parents for this little guy. And so the situation is she regained custody of him after being in rehab for 6 months. But she has to she's still in day treatment, and she doesn't get to pick where she goes, and she doesn't have a car. So it takes her 2.5 hours each way every day, and she takes her son with her. And so she needs a stroller to be able to make that a little bit easier, and with a rain cover, so because she's going to be going in all sorts of weather. So she needs a stroller. And then she also needs a high chair. She doesn't have a high chair for this little guy. And so this is a need that you guys are going to meet. And items can be used as long as they're in very, very good condition. The only thing that can't ever be used are car seats. So by the state law, those have to be brand new. But so many people have some of our other big requests are dressers and kitchen tables and things like that. And so many people have that sitting in their garage, or, your neighbor has what, or something like that. Or you can jump on Facebook Marketplace and find a dresser for $10, or something like that. So we always like them to be very good, though, condition, because we never want to have this mentality of like something is better than nothing. We really want to serve with excellence and knowing that these families deserve to have good and nice things. And a lot of the kids too, we usually try to do new clothes if a clothes is a request. Like I said, after the fact, I've taken hand-me-downs and stuff, but most of these kids have never had clothes, like new clothes, like they've never seen a tag on a clothes before, so we just love to be able to give them that dignity. And so this is a great woman who is just trying her very best. And she loves her son, and she's actually moved back in with her family that isn't the most supportive. And so she could really just use a kind face too, to show up at her door.
Absolutely.
So,
So like Amy said, this is a real request that Yvonne in CarePortal has already accepted and said, we as Neighborhood Church, we are going to meet this need. And we're going to provide the stroller and the rain cover. And I think there was one other thing involved.
A high chair.
A high chair. That's it. So we have already said yes to this. And here's how you can get involved. And there are a bunch of ways to get involved. And here's that number again that I told you about earlier. I promise it's really Neighborhood Church that you're texting and receiving texts from. But if you want to get involved in meeting that need, or if you want to get notified of the requests that come to Neighborhood Church, and Yvonne accepts and then pushes those out to our, it's called being a responder. If you want to be a responder and receive those requests and be able to help meet those needs, you can text that number, 833-212-6855. Text the word CARE. It'll send you back a link immediately, and it'll take you to a CarePortal page, our personal Neighborhood Church CarePortal page. And it'll ask you just, basically name and email and phone number, and you will start to get notified of requests that come in. So that's the first big way
and
to
it's not
to
a
get
flood.
involved.
It's not a flood. We ask the churches, would you consider meeting one need a month?
Yeah.
So it's not like every day you're going to be getting them. Sure. But really, that's the ask for you is, would you be willing to receive an email about a request? And maybe you don't have the item, or and you could help financially. I mean, we've had it where like a request will go out for like a stroller or something, and like 5 people will come together and chip in $10, and you got your stroller. If I don't know how you guys do small groups or things like that, but we've had small groups. You can actually sign up as a small group to automatically receive the requests, and as a small group you can decide if you want to take needs also. And then we need people also who will want to make deliveries, and which is the special part, I think. And for those of you who want to do that, like Yvonne will kind of be talking, those of you who text and say you want to be a part of it, if you want to be a part of actually making the deliveries too, we'll do a little training just so you kind of prepared and know what to expect, when you arrive at a doorstep. And then also too, we need always in the needs like people who have trucks or like SUVs. So if like it's something big like a bed or something like that, then Yvonne would know, hey, these are the people that I know who have a truck and might be willing to help with making this delivery.
Yeah. I drive a Honda Civic, but that makes me want to go get a truck. So.
I have a Honda CRV, and I have learned
it's surprising how much
I
you
can fit a
in those
twin
cars,
bed
right?
actually in the back of
I don't know if I
my
can do
CRV.
that, but that's impressive. That's awesome.
So,
So you can text this number, become a responder. We can get you trained on making deliveries. A couple other things that I'm really excited about as we kick this off, because I don't often do things small, so we're jumping in with both feet. Amy is helping us get Advantage Arts Academy involved with this, and what that means is, as she mentioned before, teachers are very often the first ones to notice abuse or neglect or just needs that students have. Well, this student keeps falling asleep in class, and I found out that they don't have a bed at home. It's things like that. So we are going to work with Advantage Arts Academy teachers to be able to put needs and requests into CarePortal that will come directly to us at Neighborhood Church, so that we can be, like I said earlier, not just here in this school, but we can be here for this school. And when students have real tangible needs, we can step in and meet them with the physical need, and also meet them there with the love of Jesus. And that's so exciting to be able to do.
Yeah, and again, like CarePortal is so great because anybody can be involved in it, right? Anybody can receive an email, and if I don't want to say at the very least, because praying is the very most, honestly.
Yeah, sure.
But maybe you feel like that's your ministry. Every time you see that email come through, it says, mom, and she needs this. And there's not a name, but you pray for that mom and that family. I always tell people, you're probably the only person in the world that's praying for that family. It's a great ministry to do together with a family. Like I have friends that will take their little kids on a delivery with them. They want them to see from early on that not everybody lives like us, and not everybody has the things that we need. And even you at 5 years old can be a part of helping take this, carrying this, thing into, the house or whatever. We've had even like Mario, it was interesting, somebody brought their daughter that was around the same age, and so now they like have play dates together too.
That's
so
awesome.
so it's
cool.
just a really cool thing you can do it as a family.
Yeah, awesome, very cool. So 2 last things here. The first is that Amy has been kind enough to contact DCFS for us and ask what they need. They often keep a kind of a store of often needed items.
Yeah, a lot of the times. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But a lot of the times, if somebody's having to remove a child, and they just need to come and grab some things really quick. So a lot of times, kids don't have shoes or things like that. So formula bottles and things like that. So they have a little storehouse too, where caseworkers can come and grab stuff. And it's volunteers who kind of keep it stocked.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, sorry.
I did a poor job. So we're ready to jump in with both feet. DCFS needs shoes. Amy, what size shoes do they need?
And actually, they do need to be new. So that's a requirement from DCFS. They need every size.
From like
babies
up through like teens.
Babies,
right?
Through teens who wear adult sizes.
Yeah,
so
awesome.
And everything in between. And usually the best thing is like sneakers. Are kind of the best.
Shoes,
with coming into summer, they can definitely use like sandals and things like that. But sneakers are always a really good bet.
So we're jumping in with a shoe drive. We're going to collect shoes, and we're going to get to deliver them to DCFS. And here's the thing. So I mentioned earlier we're going to do the gift bags for the teachers. We'll pray over those on Easter. We'll get to leave them here in the school for them. Between now and Easter, here's the challenge, and I want you to jump in with both feet. I think that we can collect 100 pairs of shoes for DCFS. I'm not going to count how many people are in the room. I'm not going to, tell you how many people on average attend neighborhood church in a month. But I think that if we commit to this and say, yes, we believe this is what Jesus has called us into and invited us into, the way that he has cared for us, we're going to care for others. I think between now and Easter Sunday, we can collect 100 pairs of shoes. Yeah. Can we do that? I heard one, yeah. Any more?
And the great
100 pairs of shoes.
Yeah, and the great thing is that you can get your friends involved too. So like
Absolutely.
At work or whatever, like let them know, hey, we're doing this as a church. We're helping, kids who don't have, are being pulled out of foster care. Come
celebrate Easter. Don't tell them price of admission is a pair of shoes because we don't charge admission. But, invite them to Easter and say, hey, one of the things we're doing, if you would like to be involved, we're collecting shoes for kids who
Post
don't
it
have
on your
shoes
social
to do.
media. Sometimes I've done that, like we have a need and I've posted on my social media, and a friend in Michigan will be like, hey, I want to help with that, and they Venmo me money, or things like that. So use your contacts and your social media to spread the gospel, really is what you're doing.
Yeah. So we're gonna collect 100 pairs of shoes, and that's it. We're gonna do it, and that's just the start. That's what we're kicking off with. Now, there's one last way that you guys have already been involved with CarePortal and Promise 686 that you don't know yet, so I'm about to share with you. But Amy is a fund-raised person. She raises her salary, her support, all of her ministry budget. I don't know anything about that as a church planter, but because you all generously give to Neighborhood Church, we are able to right now give Amy and Promise 686 Utah a check for $500. So I want to thank you guys for your generosity, because we can't do that without you being generous, without you responding to Jesus and saying, you know what, you've been generous to me.
Thank you.
So we're going to pass it on. We're going to be generous. And so we get to bless Amy this morning.
Thank you.
And I'm going to keep saying it. We're raising 100 pairs of shoes. So go out to wherever you buy shoes this week and start loading up the trunk. Start bringing them in. You can bring them in any week. We'll just start piling them up out there. We'll have them on display. And we're going to have 100 shoe boxes out there. I don't know where we'll fit them all, but we'll do it. And it's going to be awesome. So again, I want to say thank you. This is just the start.
Thank you.
And we're really,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah. And
Yeah.
we're really excited. And so I'm going to have Toto and the team come up now. And here's the thing. Normally we go into response time right now. And we're just going to leave that slide up there. And I'm just going to ask you to ask God how he would have you respond. And you've got a few moments to ask him now. You've got a few moments to break out your cell phone, Androids, iPhones, iPads, whatever you got with you. Text that phone number and fill out that form that it's going to send you, name, contact information, so that you can become a responder and we can respond to the real tangible needs that are right here in our community. So the band's going to give us a little bit of time to respond in those ways, and after that, they'll lead us in a song to close us out. Let me pray as we begin to respond to God. Oh, Jesus, we thank you that you have come for us. And you also send us to those who are broken, to those who are in need, to those who are vulnerable. Like Amy said before, our stories are the same in so many ways. They're just different in the details. But you came to us when we were in need, when we were in a mess, when we had nothing to show for all the struggles that we have been through, and you gave us life. So Lord, I pray you'd lead us to respond to your love. We just talked about 1 Corinthians 13 for 3 weeks, and what a perfect way to put a cap on that series and really say, God, yeah, we believe that love matters, and the way we live our lives loving others matters, and your love endures, and it's tough, and your love will last for eternity. And so, God, we want to be a part of sharing that love. And how simple it is that we can meet tangible needs, and yet how deep and amazing and glorious it is, how gracious you've been to us that we can be involved in what you do here in our community. And we pray for amazing things. We pray for many needs to be met, for many requests to come that we can jump in and say yes to. We pray, Lord, ultimately that many people would come to know the peace and the joy and the life that you are holding out to them and inviting them into. And Lord, I just pray you'd convict our hearts to respond.
If I'm poor or if I'm wealthy, I'll serve you just the same. Here I am, Lord, send me. The mountain or the valley, I will choose to praise. Here I am, Lord, send me. If I'm known by how I love, let my life reflect how much I love you. I love you. And before you even ask, oh, my answer will be yes, 'cause I love you. I love you. If the truth cuts like an arrow, I will say it anyway. 'Cause here I am, Lord, send me. If it means that they'll reject me, I will still obey. 'Cause here I am, Lord, send me. If I'm known by how I love, let my life reflect how much I love you. I love you. And before you even ask, oh, my answer will be yes, 'cause I love you. I love you. When I'm standing in your glory, I'll be glad I chose to say, here I am, Lord, send me. Well done, good and faithful, I live to hear you say, here I am, Lord, send me. Here I am, Lord, send me. Here I am, Lord, send me. If I'm known by how I love, let my life reflect how much I love you. I love you. And before you even ask, oh, my answer will be yes, 'cause I love you. I love you. If I'm known by how I love, let my life reflect how much I love you. I love you. And before you even ask, oh, my answer will be yes, 'cause I love you. I love you. Oh, how I love you. So here I am, Lord, send me. Here I am, Lord, send me.
Thank you again to our amazing worship team. And Amy, I just want to say thank you. Your stories touched my heart in so many ways, and I'm sure everybody here felt the same way. I walk my dog sometimes in the middle of the day, and what really struck home with me was the other day I went out, it was about noontime, and I heard children laughing and screaming and having joy at the school. And I normally wear headphones so I can listen to something else, and I just walked around the neighborhood with that joy filling my heart, my soul, and just, I didn't want it to end. And I just stood there for like 15 minutes just listening to it, soaking it in. And every child deserves that, and they deserve to have shoes to run around on that playground with. And I know we're going to go out and buy some shoes, probably today, and start that effort. So your stories brought this to life, and it's an opportunity truly for us to give. And my soul is touched this morning because of you, and just great joy. And I know that everybody here felt the same way. So thank you from the bottom of my heart and from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you for sharing your journey, your story. And anyways, we love you and hope that this is a lifelong joint effort to change the lives of children. And we have the power and the opportunity. I think we live in a community where we sometimes are sheltered from the needs, and this is a chance for us to have those needs brought to life and do it through an easy method that we can help share with you. So anyways, I'll get off my soapbox, but I just want to say thank you. If you do have any questions, I know David will be out by the pink sign, so please go out and bother him and challenge him with lots of hard questions. And Amy, I don't know if you have a chance to stay as well. I know that maybe some people would like to chat with you. If nothing else, give you a hug and share some love for taking time out of your week to come and share with us. So love you all. You are an amazing crew, and I love you, and thank you for being here as part of Neighborhood Church on Sunday. Love you all.